The first book of Nephi begins not merely as a record, but as a sophisticated spiritual autobiography, establishing an immediate intimacy between the narrator and the reader. In the opening lines of Chapter 1, we encounter a protagonist, Nephi, who is already grappling with the dualities of his existence, the goodly nature of his parents versus the many afflictions of his young life. From a literary perspective, this incipit serves a vital function. It grounds the high-flown prophetic visions that follow in the tangible, often painful reality of human experience. Nephi is a scholar witness, writing in a hybrid language, the learning of the Jews and the language of the Egyptians, which signals from the outset a cross-pollination of cultures and a tension between tradition and the new revelation he is about to record.
As we move into the heart of the first chapter, the setting is 600 BC Jerusalem, a city characterized by profound geopolitical and spiritual instability. The air is thick with the warnings of many prophets, creating an atmosphere of impending doom that serves as the perfect catalyst for Lehi's transformation. Here we see the classic call to adventure in a prophetic context. Lehi, a man of substance and status, is moved by compassion for his people to pray with all his heart. The subsequent vision, the pillar of fire, the descent of the radiant being, and the presentation of the book is a masterclass in ancient visionary literature. Note the sensory details, the luster that exceeds the sun, the trembling of the prophet, and the synesthesia of reading a book that fills the soul with joy, even as it pronounces the destruction of one's home. The literary irony here is sharp. The glad tidings Lehi receives are, in fact, tidings of ruin for Jerusalem. Yet they are glad because they reveal the mercy and power of God. This chapter concludes with a significant shift in the social dynamic. Lehi moves from an observer of his society to a pariah, mocked and hunted by the very people he sought to warn, establishing the recurring theme of the prophet versus the status quo.
Transitioning into Chapter 2, the narrative structure shifts from the celestial to the terrestrial, yet the stakes remain just as high. We witness the Exodus motif, a fundamental trope in Western and Near Eastern literature. The command to leave Jerusalem, abandoning gold and silver and precious things, is a symbolic stripping of the old world identity. Lehi's family is cast into the wilderness, a space that in literary terms represents both a void and a place of refinement. The 3-day journey to the borders of the Red Sea serves as a transitional period, moving the characters from a civilized urban environment into the raw, unforgiving honesty of the desert. It is here by the river Leman and in the valley Lemuel that the central psychological conflict of the entire Book of Mormon is born. The naming of these geographical features by Lehi is a poignant literary device. By naming the river after his rebellious eldest son and the valley after the second, Lehi is attempting to anchor his children to the landscape of righteousness. He pleads for Laman to be like the river, continually flowing into the fountain of all righteousness, and for Lemuel to be like the valley, steadfast and immovable. This poetic personification of nature highlights Lehi's desperation as a father and his skill as a rhetorician. However, this beauty is met with the stiff-neckedness of the elder brothers. Laman and Lemuel represent the archetypal antagonists of the familiar. They are not necessarily villains in their own eyes. They are pragmatists who refuse to believe that the world they know, the great city of Jerusalem, could ever fall. Their murmuring is the voice of the status quo, the skepticism of the materialist who cannot see beyond the horizon of the physical world.
In contrast, Chapter 2 introduces us to the internal world of Nephi as a young man. While his father dreams and his brothers complain, Nephi seeks. The text describes a pivotal moment of psychological softening.
Nephi, having great desires to know the mysteries of God, cries unto the Lord, and feels his heart melt. This is the second birth of the protagonist. He moves from being a follower of his father's vision to being a possessor of his own. The dialogue between the Lord and Nephi at the end of the chapter sets the trajectory for the rest of the epic. It establishes a covenantal logic. Inasmuch as ye shall keep my commandments, ye shall prosper. That becomes the rhythmic heartbeat of the entire record. Moreover, the chilling prophecy that the rebellious brothers will be cut off and become a scourge to Nephi's seed introduces a tragic, Shakespearean element of familial strife that will span generations.
In these first 2 chapters, we are not just reading a history. We are witnessing the birth of a new civilization out of the ashes of an old one. The narrative moves from the cosmic throne of God to a humble tent in a desert valley, illustrating a God who is both infinitely distant and intimately involved in the domestic politics of a single family. As a literary work, it demands that we consider the cost of faith, the loss of property, the fracture of family bonds, and the weight of knowing a truth that your neighbors despise. Nephi and Lehi are characters caught between 2 worlds, and their journey into the wilderness is, ultimately, a journey into the soul.